In this video, I'm going to go through the process on how to put shingles on a roof. We'll make sure that everything looks good and it's going to protect you from the rain. You'll have no drips. We'll show you how to put on the drip edge and how to properly put the tar paper on. Then we'll show you how to mark the tar paper to make sure that your shingles go on appropriately. Then we'll show you some tips and techniques on how to actually work with the shingles. So once your OSB sheathing is on, we're going to put the drip edge on. As you cut and form the drip edge, you want to make sure that if you imagine a raindrop hitting this, it would roll from one piece right to the next. In other words, you never want to have rain run under a piece of metal or drip edge. Notice how the metal always rolls over top of the one that's on the bottom. If rain can roll underneath the drip edge, you're going to have a problem. So if you poured water on the top, it would roll all the way down until it dripped off the structure. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people do this wrong. Not putting the drip edge on correctly will cause it to leak. Now once you have the drip edge completely on, the felt paper or the tar paper will go right to the edge of this drip edge. This drip edge is on every edge of the plywood to protect it. Now when we cut our tar paper, we're going to cut it about 1 inch too big. It's easy to trim off just a little bit, but you can't add. Then you just want to tack it on so the wind doesn't blow it away. Make sure there's no wrinkles. Make sure it's flat. If there's a wrinkle, your shingles won't lay flat. You want to start your tar paper from the bottom and then overlap about 2 to 3 inches. Make sure the top layer overlaps the bottom layer so the water rolls down. If you don't do this, the roof will leak. Now we'll trim off the extra tar paper and then start shingles. These are heavy, that's why you want somebody who is strong. And if possible, keep them out of the heat. If they get too hot, when you pick them up, they can just fall in half. Now there are times when you do want your shingles hot, but we'll talk about that later. If the shingle needs to bend, that's when they need to be hot. Now the bottom edge of the roof uses 2 shingles. You nail the first shingle upside down where the tabs are up. This allows rain to run all the way down the roof with shingle all the way down. Now we can put the shingle right side up, and there's a shingle underneath these tabs. If you don't double up the shingles on the bottom row, it'll leak. Now when you put the nails in, you put in 4 nails per shingle, 2 on either end and 1 right above the notches. You want to place the nails right on the tar strip. This tar strip is what glues all the shingles in place. Now at the top of the shingle, there's little cuts or little guides to make sure that you align these shingles perfectly. You don't have to guess if the shingle's right. These tabs show you exactly where they go. You can pry this little tab up so the shingle will slide right into this groove. Now when you slide the shingle sideways, it'll actually stick right on that little notch. This will give you exact side-to-side measurements. Now to get them aligned up and down, the bottom of the shingle should just cover the notch. So if you lift up the shingle, the edge should just cover the notch. When you drive in your nails, you want to drive it in right above the notch. This technique keeps everything nice and clean and consistent. Gloves are real nice because it gets really hot on the roof. Now that you understand how to align these shingles perfectly using the guide notches, you're going to want to make sure that you have extra guides to make sure that the shingles are going on perfectly straight the way you want them. And now that you've got the nailing down so all the nail heads are hidden, now we're going to want to make sure that the shingles go on straight without drifting one way or the other on the roof. We're going to make guidelines with this chalk line. It's really easy to drift unless you have these guidelines. See how you line the shingles up with this chalk line? This type of planning will make the job go a lot easier. Without these chalk lines, you can drift off 1/2 inch really easy. So we mark them about 12 inches from the notch and about 5 inches from the top of the shingle. Now you'll want to check your shingles because every shingle may be a little bit different. If you've ever put shingles on without these chalk lines, you know how easy it is to drift off. So if you want your shingles to be nice and even, these chalk lines are necessary. Now we'll talk about filling the shingles in on either side of the roof. You'll want to measure your space and then cut your shingles. You'll want to cut on the back of the shingle where the aggregate is not. Then place your shingles in that appropriate spot. You need 2 nails in every shingle and try not to hit your drip edge. Periodically, check to make sure everything is nice and straight and keep those chalk lines snapped on there. Now when you get to an edge of the roof that needs to bend, it'll get a little trickier. Now you want your shingles hot so you can lay them out into the sun. This bottom layer, you don't want to go over the edge. Now with our chalk edge ready, we'll be able to start placing our hot shingles. So we'll place the one edge on our chalk line and let the shingle bend. If it's a really hot day, you'll have no problem with it bending. Now you want your shingle to hang over the edge quite a bit. If there's not a lot of shingle bending over the edge, then it's just gonna stick up. There's enough here that they will bend down and stick. If there's not enough, they're just gonna stick out. Here's an example where they're not enough to bend down. These are years old. Here's a very important safety tip. Make sure you know where your shingles are. They're not nailed down and you can't see them. You could step on that shingle and you will slip right off the roof. You want to lay your shingles diagonal so you know that it's not nailed on. This is no small detail. There is no time for a newbie mistake. Falling off a roof is not something you want. Well, this is normal. Look at these dark clouds coming while we're on the roof. Maybe it's time for a break. Absolutely time for a break. Talk about Murphy's Law. Now that the shingles are at the top of the roof, we're going to put on our caps. We'll cut our shingles into 3 equal pieces and run them equally all the way down the roof. You want to taper off the back portion of the shingle. That way only the colored portion of the shingle will show. Just take your time and make sure they're all straight. Now the very last shingle we're going to handle a little differently. Just cut off just the colored part of the shingle. We're going to put 4 nails in this very last cap. Then we're going to cover these 4 nails with silicone. That way the shingle's on tight and sealed up. Now you don't need an awful lot of this, but go ahead and cover each one up and then we'll smear it around a little. And now, when we're done with this, we're done with the roof. Nice, neat, and clean, and ready for the rain. So those are the basics of how to put on a roof. Well, I really appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.